Welcome to the Rent Roll Queen podcast. I'm your host, Tarsi Taylor, and today's episode is brought to you by Buy a Rent Roll. Are you considering buying a rent roll and going into partnership? Today, I chat with Amanda Gleeson from Vesta Legal Advisory about buying a rent roll and partnership agreements. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. And for the people who don't know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, Amanda Gleeson. I am a commercial corporate solicitor. I have been doing this now for 10 plus years. I originally grew up in Toowoomba, one of four girls, moved to Brisbane to study law, lived there for about 15 or so years, and now I live on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, we love the Gold Coast. I love the best move I've ever made, honestly. But you do work with a few of my buyers when they're purchasing rent rolls, and I wanted to talk about real estate businesses in general, but more on the side just for now, about partnerships, because a lot of businesses are owned by two or more people in partnership. And from my own experience, sadly, I didn't have partnership agreements in my business, and I suffered because of that. And I ended up paying the price at the end when the partnership went bad. So can we talk about how to protect partnerships?
Yeah, definitely. And look, I get this question all the time, and I deal with this all the time. A lot of people come to me when starting a business, and not just real estate, like a lot of business owners come to me in the excitement of starting a business, and they when we start talking about partnership agreements or shareholder agreements, however it may be, they say, do we really need that right now?
Oh, yeah, you do.
And my answer is yes.
Yeah.
Always a yes, because we want to get that agreement in place when the parties are all happy, we're all getting along, we're all still in that real excitement bubble of starting a new venture,
the honeymoon phase.
The honeymoon phase, definitely, in real life and in business, the honeymoon phase. So absolutely, I always tell my clients, that should be one of those first governing documents you get. So things that you want to look at including, I guess, in the document.
Before we jump into what it should be included, can you spoke about shareholders agreement and partnership agreements, right?
Yep.
So what is each, and then what is the difference between the two?
Yeah, good question. So I guess it'll all come down to, how the business has been set up. So if we have a company, and then that company obviously has each of the shareholders, so the real estate agents or the business owners in that, we look to be preparing a shareholder agreement.
Right.
If the business owners have decided that they're going down more of a partnership route and they're just going to go in under their individual names, then we'd look at doing a partnership agreement, because that's the legal entity that they've chosen to move forward with. Different risks and different obligations, but very similar in the nature, in the essence that each of the business owners are putting in probably capital to get the business started. They'll each be responsible for losses and what happens to the business. And then obviously when somebody wants to leave, how do we buy that person out, or how do we exit them?
Yeah, it's something that I highly recommend to all of my clients who decide that they want to go into partnership or obviously the shareholding, same sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the minute somebody look, I'm not for business partners based on my own experience. However, when I get clients who are like, hey, I want to have somebody buy into my business, and or I'm looking at succession planning, or two people come to me, we want to buy a business, or we want to do this in our real estate business. I'm like, great, have you got your partnership agreement sorted out? Yeah. That's the first question I ask.
Perfect. Great question.
Sorry. And then sometimes it's like, oh no, and I'm like, just go and get them done. They are probably the most important document to have as part of successful marriage in business, basically, because it is another marriage.
It is, it's kind of like your prenup or whatever, your binding financial agreement, whatever you want to call it, is in that space. And definitely, as you said, someone might think that they need a partner to come help them grow, but maybe they're better off by themselves. We just don't know. And we want to make sure we have that document in place to be able to pull it out. And I always say this to my clients. It's the document that we get and we prepare when you're all on the same page and we're all happy.
Yes.
Once it's all signed, literally put it in the bottom of the drawer and you'll never, hopefully, ever have to look at it again.
Prepare for the worst, expect the best, right? That's a great motto that I pretty much have, and that's how I do all of my business. But the thing is too, when you have different partners coming in, there's different energies coming into the business.
Definitely.
Because you don't also know what's going to happen in the partner's life or your life.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you could be married and that person could be married and then there could be a breakup somewhere as well. So it's really important to protect yourselves and the business as well.
What if one of the partners just decides they want to stop working?
Yeah.
They no longer contribute to the business, but they get to still take profit. Like you're sitting there grinding away and all of a sudden somebody else is never to be found.
Yeah.
Out sailing on a boat somewhere. And
wouldn't that be nice?
Goals. But, you know, these are the things that we've got to, and like sometimes it can get a little dark. Because we've got to start talking about, you know, what about if somebody passes away? What about if somebody, you know, suffers a mental incapacity event? Something like that.
Right.
We need you guys to start thinking about those things. Hopefully, touch wood, they never happen.
Yes.
Or by that point, maybe you've sold the business and you've all retired, but we've got to start looking at sort of what we can do when those sort of bad events do happen.
Yeah. So what are the risks involved if you don't go down the path? And I mean, I know it from experience, but why don't we share all of that from your legal perspective?
Yeah, for sure. Look, and I can use some examples too because it's probably easier. But, you know, we've had clients come to us where they haven't had a robust agreement in place. You know, an agreement I read recently didn't have any way to sort of buy out someone that no longer works in the business. How do we transfer shares? How do we get rid of a shareholder that isn't performing or is in default of the agreement? So then what you run the risk of is you're stuck with a business partner that isn't pulling their weight.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can do to sort of get rid of them or exit them appropriately. And then you're sharing profits with someone that's not really contributing anymore to the business.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest things we see. And then just, making sure there is clear like exit events. You know, if somebody wants to voluntarily go, you know, they want to leave on good terms, they've just had enough. Maybe they don't want to
it does happen.
Yeah. Don't want to be a business owner or a real estate agent anymore, or anything like that. You know, they want to make sure their interests are protected too, that they get something back out of it for all the effort, capital, and everything that they've also put in.
It's protecting both parties.
Yeah, definitely.
Or all parties. Yeah. Not always partnerships are just two people. So we've got to remember they could be any parties. Yeah, and life events.
And then, you know, we work with certain business owners that somebody's contributed more. Maybe there's a minority shareholder that's in there, right? Like we want to make sure that obviously as a founder too, if you've contributed a lot of blood, sweat and tears and capital, and then somebody sort of comes in sort of at the end, that you've got sort of protections for you within the agreement to make sure that you can still run the business how you want to run it. You can still take sort of the profits and do what you were doing before that person sort of came on board.
Yeah. So it's not a like a stuck in gold kind of document. You've got to review it and keep moving forward as things change within the business as well.
And, you know, we do say put it in the drawer and hopefully it never comes out again. But correct. Like, you know, people might bring on someone down the future that they were never expecting to, or we're seeing a lot of sort of change at the moment where people are rewarding employees.
Yes.
And bringing them sort of on board. And again, you know, sure, you want to incentivize them and keep them sort of, you know, involved in the business, but you don't want to sort of give too much away either. So you want to make sure you've got the appropriate protections in place, but everybody's still happy and working towards that end goal, which is make profit.
Yeah, and be in a happy partnership, you know, it's like I said, you know, preparing for the worst, expect the best, and hopefully everything just goes absolutely amazing. But for those situations where it doesn't go great, like my situation, then there is a protection there around on how to exit and how to make everything streamlined. So it takes away also the emotional stress later on.
Correct, because you don't want then that seeping through the business and impacting your employees who hopefully should never ever really know that this is going on or happening.
Yeah.
I guess the other biggest thing to talk about that, because it follows on from exits, right, is restraint.
Yeah.
You know, how can you then protect your business interests after that person has exited, whether friendly or not friendly, and making sure that they're not sort of out there, I guess, poaching clients, poaching employees, setting up a competing business right next door.
Yep.
Like, you know, particularly in the real estate industry, like you'll know this more than me, but it's quite a relationship game.
It is a relationship game.
So anybody sort of leaving an agency and going to another agency, like that name sort of travels. So you want to make sure if they have been sort of a partner or a shareholder in the business that you are protecting those business interests.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's so important. And, you know, we just need to stop for a moment. And this is what it is. You just got to stop for a moment and stop seeing everything through rose-colored glasses and make the right commitment to yourself and to your business by doing these things that you have to put the investment into, because it's an investment.
Yep.
Because then at the end of the day, when something does go wrong, if it goes wrong, then you are protected.
Literally.
Yeah.
And I like, as I said, you know, the client that we're sort of working on, where they don't have a good shareholders agreement at the moment, they've probably spent more money trying to fix the issue now than they would have if they just got sort of a proper document to begin with.
And that's the thing. You save a lot more money at the beginning than you do right at the end. And even like you start thinking about you got to go down the road of litigation and all the rest of it, and then you're in court and you've got to have mediation and those sorts of things. Well, that costs money.
Yeah.
So why not avoid it from the very start?
Yep. Exactly right. And that's the picture I want to paint. I'm glad I've got some war stories that I can use now when I try and sort of sell my clients. Like we need this document in place. Like I know it's sort of an expense that you probably weren't looking to pay for.
It's an investment that you have to pay for now that hopefully you will never use in the future. But if you have to use it, it's here. And I can say openly and honestly from my own experience, I tell everyone partnership agreements, make sure everything's there, you know, even in your own marriage, have those conversations. They're so important. Get the right documents in place to protect you legally, and then fly as far as you possibly can and as high as you possibly can, because your wings aren't clipped.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. And hopefully you've talked about all that awkward stuff that, you know, you don't have to do it down the track. And then when we get there, hopefully it's a little less awkward because we've got a document and it specifies how we deal with that. And, you know, it might not be fun, but we've done that.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I totally love that.
Yeah.
So partnership agreements, guys, for anybody listening, they are highly important. Or your A team. I always call solicitors my A team. They're part of the A team. They're part of my growth team. It's really important to connect with them and get those systems in place. So if you're thinking about getting a partnership or bringing somebody into your business or rewarding your employees, make sure you're reaching out to your solicitors to have that conversation. That's so important. So the next thing is business growth, right? So here we are, we're in business, we've got our partners, we're doing it all. And now all of a sudden we wake up in the morning and I go, I want to add an extension to my home. Yeah. Which is essentially what you are doing when buying a rent roll.
Yes.
So you've got a business and then you're attaching another rent roll or business to your business, which is attaching a new extension to your home.
Yep.
So let's talk about how we can make this a successful outcome for business growth, because I have seen this being done so terribly wrong, where you've got a foundation of your own business, so your own home is structurally not sound, and all of a sudden you want to attach
something to it.
Yeah. So how do we protect a buyer in that case? Like, what are things that they could be asking or looking for in their own business and speaking to you about before even considering buying a rent roll?
Yeah, definitely. Good question, right? So making sure, I think the first I sort of ask them is, you know, have you got the employees and the capacity to take that on?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lot of extra work. Like what they're hoping for is they're going to get this 100% perfect rent roll that's going to come across,
I haven't seen one yet.
The management agreements are going to be perfect. The tenancy agreements are going to be perfect. All the property condition reports are going to be there. They're going to be making money. Tenants are paying on time. It's beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the picture you just painted.
And hopefully one day I will get 100% rent roll too. And we get pretty close sometimes, particularly when our sellers have worked with you and cleaning up their DD. But Do you have the capacity to take that on right now? Do you have the
right.
employees? Or are you a sole trader at the moment and you are sort of, already burning the candle at both ends and you're about to add something else on because it looks good?
Yeah,
the
that's
profit, right? It's going to help.
Yeah.
So that would be my first thing that I'm sort of asking. Then I want to know, what systems do you have in place? Are your systems right to take on this? Are you using the same system as they are? Are you sort of merging across something that's coming from a different system? Is it going to work? How long is that merge going to take?
Yeah.
Particularly if you're buying a big rent roll, like 200 properties. How long because I love it, because everybody that buys a rent roll is expecting that they're going to get it all across in one day.
And it doesn't happen like that at
all.
No.
So is your system capable for this big change and this big dump of data, I guess, to say? If it's the same system, perfect, good.
It makes it so much easier. It really does.
Easier, but do we have that all in place? And do you have all your systems outside of the actual, Property Me or whatever system you're using, but any other systems in the business, are they all sound? Is everything up to scratch?
Yes.
Do you have a process that you're following? Do you have appropriate staff that know what they're doing?
What does it look like when you're about to put on this brand new attachment to your business,
Exactly.
I always go again, like from the foundation, you don't wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to attach, I'm going to extend my home.
Yeah.
You literally go, okay, I need to go and speak to the architect.
Yeah.
I need to get the soil done, like the soil testing done. I need to prepare my property to make sure that I can add this new structure on.
Yeah.
And then happy days, then you're speaking to the banks and all the rest of it that go with it.
Yeah.
But, when we have seen it go wrong.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? Yeah. And it's not just once or twice. But like you said, have you got the employees that are able to take this on?
Yeah.
Have you booked in holidays to go away while we're in transition period?
Yeah.
Because what are you doing? The amount of people that literally sign a contract and they're like, I'm going on a holiday. No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
You're not holidaying for like the next 12 months. Like we need to get this done and dusted and under control. Yeah. And I hate saying it, because everyone does need a break and they deserve a break.
For sure.
So there's nothing wrong with that. But do you have the people behind you? And are you sure that they're doing it correctly in the first instance? Because you're checking to do DD when you're buying a rent roll, right?
Yeah.
Have you checked and done DD in your own business to know that your staff are doing it? Okay, great, you've done DD. Who did you do it with?
Yeah.
Your staff. So the same people making the mistakes in the business?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we need to
step back.
Right,
yep.
Right. And then it's like, okay, well, let's have a look at it. And like you said about our systems, do they have the capacity to be able to add this extension on and to fluidly run? Have I had a conversation with my property management software to discuss how that's going to look?
Yeah.
Because they don't do that.
No, not at all. And I remember talking to a property manager and she told me she was managing over 400...
on her own.
On her own. You're managing over 450 properties. I hope to God that your owner of this business does not add a rent roll for you, because that's going to push you
to the absolute limit. So no support whatsoever. No VAs, no admin, no nothing.
No.
Oh, that poor property manager.
Now, this was years ago, so I'm hoping they've grown and they've got more people, right?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, as the business owner, sometimes all you are looking at is that bottom line, that profit, that number, right? But you got to remember, you've got to have the people, the support behind you.
Yeah.
To make sure that it's working and it's running smoothly as well, because then what if you come to sell it and then we got to do a lot of cleanup on the other end,
Well, that's the thing. And even when you go to buy a business, when you've done due diligence properly, it will show all the discrepancies, right? And then if that report's then given to you, because, you're the solicitor working on behalf of the buyer, you're able then to articulate that correctly to the seller of what they need to rectify before the settlement takes place. So could you run us through some of the inconsistencies or discrepancies that you see that need to be rectified before settlement?
Yeah. So a lot of them come down to the documentation. Yeah. Usually your management agreements and your tenancy agreements. Yeah. So with the management agreements, it's usually stuff like hasn't been signed properly, hasn't been signed by all the parties, maybe it's not dated, that sort of thing. So we're looking to tidy up those Form 6s and make sure they are compliant. I mean, we only have to assign them in Queensland, so that's pretty good. Yeah. But I still want to make sure, it's signed by all the parties.
Well, let's just make this really clear. It needs to be executed correctly. That's in every state. That's not just
that's
here.
A good point, actually,
you know, and you have to have the correct ownership names. Like that's really important as well. So that's not just here. That is throughout Australia and throughout the world.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter where you are globally. You need to have those things checked off. And if you actually read your legislation, it will stipulate that they have to be executed correctly.
Just like any document, any agreement. Doesn't have to be a rent roll, doesn't have to be a Form 6.
But it gets missed all the time.
All the time. I've seen some really funny things come back signed and I'm just like, I don't know if I get paid enough for this. I just
that's so funny.
And then like your tenancy agreements, right? Like same thing. Are the correct details in there? Do we have all the dates in? Are they signed properly as well? Do we have property entry, exit condition reports attached? Making sure that is all sound.
Yeah.
Those are probably the two things that I'm looking at to make sure they're going to cause us the less heartache when I'm acting for a seller and we're going to do the DD process.
What about routine inspections? Because I'm finding that, you know, if routine inspections aren't done, you're leaving yourself wide open for a whole lot of mess.
Definitely finding that coming up a little bit more too. I don't know whether it's just getting a bit more relaxed.
No, I think it's more to do around, we've got a labour shortage, big labour shortage. And the problem with that is, you know, you're basically exhausting your employees with communication and everything else, and they're just finding it difficult to mainly get to properties. It's not really tenants being difficult. Yeah. It's mainly not having the employees in the back end.
The girl that had 450 properties, I don't know how she was inspecting all of those.
That's why I'm saying. That's why I looked at you and just went, what?
I do not know how she was getting to all this. So, absolutely right. I think everybody's just pushed to their limits and then, things are getting missed, but they're important. And then making sure when we're sort of, I guess, going through the list and getting the numbers, that it all matches up. Are the fees right? Are the calculations right? Has there been a rent renewal, something that's been missed, or has there been an agreed reduction with an owner in relation to the fees we're going to charge? Does it match the lease that we're being given?
And does it match their management agreement as well? So that's, I see a lot of businesses where they just miss out on a lot of income and, you know, then or they've reduced things or they've, you know, they've done it incorrect. And all of a sudden the buyer, they have to basically go on what's been negotiated and so forth, not what's in the agreement. And then it reduces, or they've been shown, hey, in the prospectus, here's where it was at.
It's 8%, but actually it's 4% over here, and so it's actually a lot less income. And, you know, I'm jumping ahead here, but, you know, the buyer can't then go change the terms because then they risk losing that property.
That's right.
And not being able to claim it. So, you know, it's sort of stuck because they want the property included. It's still, you know, profit at the end of the day, but definitely finding sort of those discrepancies, and they are coming up a little bit more too when we're sort of getting to settlement and whatnot, and it's been sort of missed, and then all of a sudden we're looking at the Property Me or whatever management system file and it's come up, actually, that's not right.
Oh, trust me, it's a fun job in my end because, you know, I've got to go through all of that and then provide all the figures. So it's a lot of fun going through every single one to make sure it's all correct.
Literally.
And then, you know, so we've gone through the process of buying, right? We really need to get the contract. Contract is another big part of buying, right? So if your contract isn't solid, you're screwed. There's no there's no nice way of putting it. That's just how it is. So what can buyers do to ensure that they have a really great contract? Like what should they be looking at?
Yeah, definitely. So my first one is always due diligence, right? I want to make sure in that clause we understand what we're getting access to.
Yes.
When we can get access to it. And the process that we have to follow. So I'll see in contracts, and I'll sort of look at, I guess, like the property list, right? Like how many properties do we have on the list? If it's a small list, like it's 50 properties and the contract says you'll get 10% of that, I'm probably okay. I'm not going to push the buttons there. You're buying a list that's 200 properties and you only get access to 20 of them to do your DD.
See, I don't agree with that wholeheartedly. Like if you're speaking about buying a rent roll, you need to go through every single property because every single property is managed differently, and this is what has to be very understood.
For sure.
You're managing every single property differently, right? So if you're not going through every single one, you have no idea what is actually going on within that portfolio. Because you could literally do 5, 10, 20, whatever it's going to look like, and then all of a sudden that remainder of that portfolio has 5 or 6 issues that will cost you
a lot of money.
Definitely.
And the seller's only going to give you like the 20 of their best properties, right?
Yeah.
If I'm only going to give you 10%, I'm going to give you my 20 best properties.
Here it is. Go have a look. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
So, definitely making sure that due diligence clause is very sound. Also, what I don't want in there is like a deeming provision. So basically where it sort of says, if the buyer hasn't either satisfied, waived or terminated their due diligence condition, then the contract automatically satisfies that condition.
Right.
So then what you run the risk of is all of a sudden you've got a satisfied DD condition, you've got all these issues over here and you're actually going to terminate.
Yeah.
Now you're sort of stuck. Hopefully there's still some other conditions left, but, I would definitely, and that clause does sneak in a little bit.
Yeah, right.
I don't usually put it in. I don't love it. I think, each party should be able to either satisfy, waive or terminate.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any of this sort of deeming provision stuff. So definitely making sure that is not included.
Yeah.
That's definitely a risk for the buyer more than anything.
Definitely,
Good for the seller. The next clause is always going to be retention.
Oh, retention. Here we go.
Has to be my favorite clause.
Yeah.
You just want to make sure that you've got a really sound retention clause, particularly if you're acting for a buyer. You want to understand what is a lost property? How can you claim for a lost property? What is going to be defined as a lost property, right? Because not all contracts are the same.
No, they're not.
There's no sort of standard. A lot of it is, obviously, if they go to a different agency, absolutely, it's going to be a lost property any day of the week. But not all the contracts are going to be the same. So you want to make sure it's clearly defined what will be considered a lost property, but also what won't be. Because then I've got to sort of let them know, you got to understand if you go sell a property on your rent roll list.
That's right.
You can't go then claim it as a lost property.
No,
and
you just got commission,
double dip on that. Great for you, but it'll never sort of fly with the seller. So definitely making sure it's clear, what can be and what can't be, or what sort of will be defined as a lost property. And then making sure the days, the timeline you've got. So is it 90 days, which is quite industry standard, or do you have a little bit longer?
Yes.
Do we have 120 days? Great, we've got a little bit extra time up our sleeve. What can we do for multiple owners?
Yeah.
That's a big risk for a buyer. I mean, great, profit, but also if you got an owner that's got 12 units and they terminate all property management agreements, that's going to chew up a huge chunk of that retention percentage fund. So do we need to look at sort of making that percentage a larger percentage? Maybe it's 30%.
Yeah.
Maybe you have longer time for the multiple property owners and keep the industry standard 90 days for everything else.
Yes.
So just making sure that clause is quite tight and understanding, I guess, too, what the buyer and seller have spoke about anyways before. Because, they'll do all the negotiations usually without me.
Yeah.
And so things will be spoken about and agreed to.
Yes.
I got a letter of intent the other day. It had the retention as 20%. My client came back and said, we've actually agreed to 30. And I was like, well, that's not what the letter of intent says. So what do you want me to draft it as? We'll see if we can sort of get it through.
Yeah.
And we didn't. Obviously, it came up.
Yeah.
No, it was discussed at 30%. We're absolutely going to have 30%. But, sometimes the heads of agreement and the letters of intent that are coming through aren't what has been discussed at the table as well. So just making sure anything that has been discussed is in there and it's included and it's clear.
Yes. Well, that's very important. And the other condition is restraint of trade, I feel, that needs to be understood.
I was going there next.
You go.
Definitely. The next one is your restraint of trade. And again, that's going to come down to, what have you discussed with the seller? Because I get a lot of buyers coming to me, the seller's looking to retire. They're getting out of the industry.
Are they really,
that's interesting because, there's no non-compete in here. It's just a non-solicit. So, or, we'll try and put a non-compete in and they push back and it's like, but if they said they were leaving the industry, surely they don't care.
Yeah, that's right.
So just making sure, what are we actually doing here? Are they selling the whole rent roll or are they only selling you part of the rent roll? Are they selling you the whole business? Are they getting out of the industry? Cool. Yeah. So they should be pretty happy with a fairly tight restraint because
anyone who's genuinely leaving just goes, don't really care, just sign it.
5 years, absolutely. I am not doing
I'm
this
not
ever
coming
again.
back.
Literally. But it's when we get those ones that push back and they've said, I'm getting out of the industry. It's like, well, why do you care? What? And so we need to dig a little bit deeper there.
Yes.
But, absolutely. You're buying a rent roll, you're buying 200 properties. That's a lot of money you're spending, upwards of, $1 million sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
You want to make sure that you've got those restraints in there that doesn't allow them to go and contact any of the owners to either let, sell or manage the property. But also you don't want them setting up a shop next door.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
Because, as we said earlier, it's a relationship game. So if this real estate agent's been around in the industry 20, 30, whatever years, their clients are going to know them, love them, trust them.
That's right.
They go set up another shop. People are going to follow. So you want to make sure you've got something.
And you want to have a really tight restraint as well, especially if the seller's going to stay in the marketplace as a sales agent.
Yeah.
Definitely. And you're buying just the rent roll, but their intention is still to stay and sell, and then building a relationship also, because like you said, it's a relationship game, right? So it's really important to have that relationship with the seller.
Yeah.
Because if they are going to stay in, okay, well, I still want to grow my rent roll. So, what relationship can we build to allow that to continue while you continue to sell?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's things like that.
Going back to your sort of retention too, sometimes it is nice if the seller is looking to get out of the industry, retire, maybe you sort of ask them or, pay for them to stay on for a couple of months and help that transition. I see when that sort of happens, it's a nicer process.
Yeah, definitely.
Retention claims come down and owners sort of, a lot more stay on and you sort of lose less. So, I do sort of suggest sometimes if they're open to it and they're willing and you've discussed that with them, maybe they can help with that sort of transition period a little bit.
There's so many discussions that need to be had. So what I'm going to do, Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Welcome.
I'm going to add all of your contact details to the caption.
Yep.
And anyone that needs to speak to you about buying or selling a rent roll and partnership agreements, may you please just reach out to Amanda and just work with her on basically those items so that you can have a successful outcome.
Yes, please do.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.